Narcissism is a personality disorder. It is not a term to throw around lightly. It's a serious thing. It exists in the realm of psychology, not politics. Yet sometimes the only way to understand politics is through psychology. When I hear people on TV confused, perplexed about Donald Trump's continued promotion of the big lie, when I hear commentators saying, this doesn't make any sense, why is he doing this? Well, it does make sense when viewed through the prism of narcissism. It's not political, it's psychological. And to give credit where it's due, I keep hearing political reporters talk about Trump's delusions, not just lies, delusions. Google that word and you'll see lots of references to mental health or lack thereof. So what are the downstream effects of all this? Where are we heading as a country? You've probably noticed that Trump has found at least 3 ways to reach people after being banned from Twitter and Facebook. He's releasing lots of statements which are shared and read and taken seriously on far-right TV. He's giving lots of interviews for books that are coming out all the time. And he's giving lots of speeches that are carried live on Newsmax and One America News. Although not Fox, by the way. In OAN land, election rigging is still a daily theme. Imagine that, right? It's been months and months and months. This is still a top story on channels like OAN. And Trump is on the air this weekend saying that election rigging, fraud, what he calls the fraud, is the biggest issue among the GOP base. Listen to him call out the quote-unquote rhinos who don't get that.
A lot of the rhinos don't realize that yet. A lot of the leaders of the Republic, guys like Mitch McConnell, they have no idea how big an issue this is. This is the biggest issue with the Republican Party and the Republican voter. When I get up and speak, all they want to talk about is the election fraud because it was the crime of the century and people are dying and our country is going to hell because of a rigged election, and it's a shame.
On one level, Trump is right that this is the animating issue of the GOP right now. One man's narcissism wreaking havoc with an entire political party. With me now is Carl Bernstein, the legendary investigative journalist and CNN political analyst. I find myself, Carl, after a week full of Trump delusion headlines, wondering where we are heading as a country. Where do you see us heading?
Well, I think we need to slow down a bit and deconstruct some of the things that you've just laid out there. The first thing is I'm not a psychiatrist, and God knows all of us may have a degree of narcissism, but when we're talking about Trump, we're obviously talking about a kind of delusional madness, such as General Milley was talking about, that is on a scale and a scope that we have never experienced in an American president in our history. I think we need to calmly step back and maybe look at Trump in a different context. He is our own American war criminal, of a kind we've never experienced before.
You just said war criminal. What do you mean, war criminal?
I did. Well, in international law, there have been, quote, crimes against humanity. I think what we're talking about, Trump's crimes as an American war criminal in his own country that he has perpetrated upon our people, including the tens of thousands of people who died because of his homicidal negligence in the pandemic, putting his own electoral interests above the health of our people as they were slaughtered in this pandemic. Looking at his actions in terms of fomenting a coup to hold on to office in which the head of the American military, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has now compared Trump, not the press, not reporters comparing Trump to Hitler, but rather the head of the American military comparing him and his movement to brown shirts, to the Reichstag fire. This is a huge wake-up call to this country when General Milley, the head of the American military, has said this. And it fits as a piece with something so extraordinary in our history. It's not political. Trump is not just political. He transcends the political, and we need to start looking at his crimes in that context.
You're going to get heat for talking about war crimes because there's, it's not as if the ICC is setting up a panel or anything, taking any action.
I want to be careful in using and trying to say we need a new context. a war against both our people in terms of what the effects of his policies and selfishness, if you want to use the word narcissism, brought. Okay, it is something in itself that we have never seen in a president before. It's not about just impeachable offenses. It's about a different kind of crime in which the humanity of the people of the United States was relegated to the floor by the President of the United States, who uplifted only his own narrow political, financial, and personal interest above that of our people, of our country, of our Constitution. All I'm doing is saying, whoa, let's look at Trump's crimes in a different context. Yes, war crimes. These were crimes against our people.
Let's go a little bit deeper, Carl, as you stay with me. Let me bring in Ruth Ben-Ghiat. She is the author of a book called Strong Man. She's also a professor of history at New York University, specializing in threats to democracy. But Ruth, that title, Strong Man, Mussolini to the present, clearly you believe Trump is one of those strong men. Tell me how narcissism factors into this and how what Carl is saying factors into what you study every day, Ruth.
So the frame, we do need a different frame to look at Trump, and that frame I've always thought is authoritarianism and strongman rule. And Trump was only one of many strongmen who either had criminal records, they are criminals. Hitler and Mussolini had criminal records, and Trump, like Putin and Berlusconi in Italy, was under investigation when he came into office. So governance is not about public welfare or any of normal presidential goals. It's about keeping immunity and amassing as much power as possible. And so Trump is highly unstable, deeply destructive, but he's also crazy like a fox. And he has the same personality traits as many of these leaders I've studied: massive ego, megalomania, only I can fix it, all of this. But it covers up a deep insecurity. So they become obsessed with humiliating and controlling and dominating everyone around them. And what better domination game than to make millions of people believe in an alternate reality that benefits you by depicting you as infallible, I am your voice, and keeping you, ideally, keeping you in office.
You're saying something really interesting about the big lie. The big lie is a power trip. It's a power move. Every time he tells his fans to believe the election was stolen from him, he's gaining power because they're all believing that lie together, right? Or saying they do.
Yes, it's the ultimate power trip. And the other thing he did, and I was just, every step of the way, he was just confirming. This is why I wrote the book. The Trump White House was very similar to the governance structures of many authoritarians. They create these inner sanctums surrounded by sycophants and flatterers and family. There's usually family in there. And these people will not push back. They will not tell him the truth. They will keep his secrets. They will repeat his lies in public. And he did the same to the GOP and the civil service. And once that happens over time, Trump wasn't there very long, but they can begin to believe their own propaganda. And that's where the delusional can come in.
So then I come around and back to Carl on where are we going? Last night in Arizona, Trump said, quote, "In my opinion, there's no way they win elections without cheating." In other words, he's saying no Democrat can ever hold office without cheating. These are the crazy lies that he's spreading every night. And I know we're not airing them on CNN or MSNBC or ABC, but they're being heard by millions of people. So Carl, where are we going?
I think what we have to realize is that this movement and this madman, this authoritarian demagogue, has been embraced by one of the two political parties. They are enthralled to him. The Republican Party of McConnell and of McCarthy are enthralled to Donald Trump and this movement to disenfranchise the American voter who may vote as a Democrat. This is an authoritarian, demagogic movement that now is represented in one of our political parties and its leadership to the top. We need to start looking at our country, as journalists especially, to see how did this happen here. We need to take the focus off Trump and his psychology and all the rest and look at his movement and how it is seized tens and scores of millions of American voters who have embraced his lies and his pathology and these war crimes.
The downstream effects of the delusions. Carl and Ruth, thank you both.